ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to AIIAS Academy's Senior High School program. My name is Alfred, and I am the educator here at AIIAS Academy, and this is your business communication class. This is the first lesson of the course, which I will explain to you the things that you must know about business communication. I would like you to watch from the beginning up to the end of this video, so please pay attention, and if possible, please take notes. Let's get started. Hi everybody, since this is your first lesson, I'll teach you the basic parts of a professional email and learn on something you should do and should avoid in creating an email. By the end of this lesson, I expect that you'll have a good understanding of how a basic English email is organized. Now, the first thing I want you to check is your current email. What does it look like? Is it business appropriate? So here's the first thing I want you to do. Make sure you have an email address that is professional looking. Here is an example of my personal email, but I know it's not appropriate for business communication. Therefore, I use my professional email. You'll notice my first and last name in the email. I suggest that you have one similar to this. You don't need to include your full name, but it must be something that readers can easily identify that it is you. Now, let's look at the four basics of an email and how you will write them. These are subject line, the greeting, the email text, and the closing. These may seem simple, but looking at each part and examining it is very important. The subject line is the heading. This is the first thing to do when writing an email. You should introduce the topic of your email and get readers' minds. Let's look at a couple of examples. In our first example, the topic is unclear. This shows the reader exactly why you're emailing them. The subject line should be as clear and as specific as possible. Try to imagine that you are receiving an email. Which subject line has the clearest message? Now, here's something I don't want you to do. Don't forget about the basics of writing in English, like spelling things correctly and getting your grammar, punctuation, and capitalization right. Paying attention to these starts even at the subject line. Next comes the greeting. Greeting should be formal and not too familiar. If you are certain about a few details of your reader, this makes things easier. For instance, if the reader is a man, then call him as Miss Alfredo when the greeting seems strange. If you are not absolutely certain, use titles that are gender non-specific. This means that greeting them without referring to their gender. Look for a person's position at the company, university, or office, if possible, and mention that in the greeting. For instance, Dear Professor Ranjith, or Dear Director Cruz. If gender is only the information you have about the reader, then Dear Sir or Dear Madam will work. Some people use To Whom It May Concern. I've used this on letters of recommendation for students. You can also use it if you are addressing a company like FedEx, a bank, or an airline. If you're addressing a group, you could use greetings like this. Now, let's turn to the email text, which is the third but largest part of your email, because it includes the main message and all necessary details. Here's another don't. You aren't writing a book here, so avoid long emails altogether. You want the reader to read all of your text, so you should only include important information, important details, but be brief and straight to the point. Keep the email text to 1 or 2 paragraphs. No paragraph should be more than 3-4 sentences long. Another thing I want you to avoid is complaining or blaming your reader. It makes the reader on the defensive mode, and it makes them less likely to do what you're asking of them. If you ask about something that is incomplete, you can do the trick called self-blaming. For instance, if your email is an order or an application that has not gotten a response, your email should say something like, "Perhaps my order was incomplete," or "Perhaps I left something out of my package," rather than complain about the situation. And here's something I always want you to do. Always add a word to thanks. If you make a request for information or ask an action, you're asking somebody to do something for you. Even if it's their job to do, no busy person likes to feel like you don't appreciate their effort. The final part of your email is your closing. This is very short and simple. Just add "regards" or "best regards" and leave it at that. This is a professional email, so no more than that is needed. This is followed by the signature, your first and last name only. No title, just your name. Add any contact information your reader will need to communicate with you. They already have your email address, but if they need anything else to easily contact you, put in here. Finally, I would like to add a word of caution here. This is our last don't. Never address your email to your reader until you have written it and checked it over. Considering all them that we've been over in this lesson, it's too easy to hit send by accident before you carefully consider how it will sound and read at the other end. Wait until the very last to add the email address. And now for our final do. Take culture into consideration. A lot of the information you'll get through this course is based on North American standards. However, not all cultures communicate in the same way. Would people in Japan have same style of writing as people in the Philippines? So, the last check you must do before sending an email is to consider how your reader might understand what you've written. So let's review what we've learned in this lesson. First, there are 4 parts to a professional written email: the subject line, the greeting, the email text, and the closing. Do have a professional email. Do make your subject line very clear and brief. Do add words of appreciation, and do consider cultural differences between you and your reader. Don't forget about spelling, grammar, punctuation, and capitalization. Don't write a book. Email text should be limited to 1 to 2 paragraphs and 2 requests. Don't complain or blame. Don't address the email until it is written and checked carefully for all the things we've learned in this lesson. I hope you enjoy this first lesson and feel confident to write your first email in this course. Try and apply as many of the do's and don'ts as we've covered here. I'll see you in our next lesson.